Welcome to Into the Fire, a Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series.
Hi, this is Jerome Davis. I'm the artistic director of Burning Coal Theater Company, and I'd like to welcome everyone to Into the Fire, the Burning Coal Theater Company podcast series on all things theatrical. We have a guest today, Jeremy Vance, who is stage managing our current production of Silent Sky by Lauren Gunderson, which runs December 1st through 18th at the Murphy School here in Raleigh. We'd like to welcome you, Jeremy, and talk a little bit about your extraordinary position of stage manager. So Jeremy Vance, welcome to Into the Fire.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. And thank you for working on this. I believe will be your third production at Burning Coal. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah. So let's back up just a little bit and ask, first of all, because I'm always curious to know how people arrive at the place in life that they've found themselves in. How did you get started working in theater? Was that something you were interested in from a very early age, or did it happen later in life? How did that happen?
Yeah, so my exposure to theater really started in high school. I mean, I grew up in public schools and they took us to see shows all the time, but I never really had an interest in it until I, interestingly enough, took a French class. We were required to have 2 language credits to graduate. And so I decided I couldn't stand spending any more time with my homeroom teacher and went the French route instead of Spanish. And the French teacher just happened to be sort of in charge of the technical aspects of our theater department. And he took a liking to me and sort of brought me into the fold. And I started working behind the scenes, doing, set changes and spots and everything like that. We didn't really have a concept of a stage manager in that department because it was a smaller theatrical department. But a lot of my friends moved on from that, went to college. And when I started to look at what I was going to do, sort of, as my career, I sort of forgot about the theater. I was looking at teaching, and then nothing really drew me in. And then I caught up with one of my friends from the theater department, and he was like, you'd be really good for this. You should try it. And so
yeah. How long ago was that?
That would have been 2016. So
6 years now.
6 years now, yeah.
Long enough to know better.
Yeah.
So no one else in your family was interested in theater or the arts, or were they?
No, not that I can recall. I don't know that there's not a lot of support for the arts, sort of for me in my background. So it is sort of something that sets me apart from my family.
Right. Well, that's often the case, I think. With me, I found out very late in life, like after I turned 50, that I had a grandparent who was a minister, but he would always, when he moved to a new town, he was a Methodist minister, so every 2 years they would move him somewhere else, and he would always start a theater group when he went to the other town, which I had not known for most of my life. But prior to that, I was in the same boat. I felt like, how in the world did this happen? So somewhere back along your family tree, there might be somebody lurking.
Yeah.
Did you? I assume you did not study stage management in college. Is that correct?
Oh, no, I did. That was sort of that conversation. My friend was at ECU for theater, and he said, look, I just know your personality, and I think that this is a program that would really benefit you, and you'd probably be good for it. And I feel like he was right. I jumped right in. I signed up for ECU's theater program, specifically studying stage management, and here I am.
Was there a lot of competition, or is it seems to me that that's a job that is absolutely critical and very creative in many ways, but it's not something that that artists tend to gravitate toward. Did you find that there as well, or were there a lot of good students in that program while you were there?
No, it was definitely a small group of us kind of keeping the program afloat. That it didn't really have a proper faculty position until my senior year. They finally filled that position again. So there were only about 6 or 7 of us in the program, but so it was relatively competitive between us because between the 6 of us, we were trying to figure out who was going to be running the main stage shows and who was going to do all the smaller things off to the side and stuff like that. So very competitive.
That's a larger cohort than I remember at college myself. So it seems like that. And now, do they have a degree or a minor in stage management, or how does that work at ECU?
Yeah, so my degree is a BFA in theater arts, and then you concentrate from there. So I have a concentration in stage management. And they have, since I've graduated, created a minor in stage management as well. From what I'm told, that's quite popular. There are a lot of students picking that up, which is good because I think they have less majors now, but with the minors, they're able to support this the program.
That's good, yeah. Yeah, well, I hear nothing but good stuff about ECU's theater program overall. I'm glad to hear that they have a minor in stage management, and because I just think it's such a critical function.
Absolutely.
What does a stage manager do for those who only know of theater through what they experience after they buy their ticket and take their seat in the auditorium? The stage manager, with the odd alternative of something like Our Town, but generally speaking, the stage manager is not visible to the audience or the workings of the stage manager. What does the stage manager do? How would you describe it without going into the gruesome details too much?
Right. What I always tell people is that a stage manager is the man behind the curtain, if you will. We keep the show running. We're supposed to maintain the integrity. So we assist in organizing, and that's scheduling and things like that, creating paperwork to make sure that everything's in line. And then we execute that. We do our best to create a safe environment that ultimately fulfills the vision of the director and the designers. It's just sort of this outside sort of trying to rein everything in and keep everything moving forward, dealing with issues, things like that. Yeah.
Do you think that you're more in line with the tech elements, or more in line with the artistic elements? I don't know that there's that much delineation, but typically when we are forced to, like when we're filling out grants and we're forced to put the budget for the stage manager into a line item, it goes under the technical theater side rather than the artistic side. I'm wondering, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's more of an artistic job, more of a technical job, more of an administrative job?
Yeah, I think it's sort of administrative arts. I always approach it from a more artistic viewpoint. I think that the more traditional style is very technical, but I definitely view it as I view the role of a stage manager as artistic as a designer, or because I think it takes a certain artistic finesse to be able to understand the design and the vision and everything, and to maintain that. Like, we're not imposing our will by any means in that, but being able to take that on and help to maintain and push that forward. But absolutely administrative as well, just because we tend to aid in scheduling and managing budgets sometimes, things like that. So yeah, I'd say administrative arts is
Mhm.
administrative artistic is the best way to describe it for me.
And when one thinks of actors, we talk a lot, especially in the film world, but maybe in the theater world as well. We talk about actors selecting a part, um, uh, or a director who selects a play that is particularly meaningful for them. Do you approach what you do that way? I mean, do you think this play means something to me, and so I want to do it, or this play doesn't speak to me, and so I don't want to do it, or is the function that you serve less about that? I'm curious because it's not something we hear. Stage managers are not typically ask their opinion about plays or about roles. How do you approach what you choose to do? Is it first come first served, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, I absolutely ask myself why this play, why now? That was something I was taught in college, and I like to see what a play or musical can do for me. And sometimes that's something as simple as fun. Like this is something that is fun. It's enriching the youth or something along those lines. But when it comes
Mhm.
to plays, I want to find and work with pieces that are going to challenge me and help me to develop as a person. And my former experience with a Lauren Gunderson at Burning Coal when we did INU, I was just so touched by her writing. So when you presented this project, I didn't know much about the show, but I was absolutely on board because I know that Lauren Gunderson speaks to me. So yeah, I absolutely like to look at the work that's being done and see if it aligns with my artistic values.
Mhm. Have you worked in other areas of the theater other than stage management?
In college, I did dabble in design. I actually have a minor in design and production with a concentration in costume design. And I did a two-hander that was a fun project that we took to a local theater in downtown Washington, North Carolina, the Turnage Theater.
Mhm.
And it was the Turn of the Screw. It was a two-hander. It was very interesting because one character plays the governess and the other actor is all the other characters, everyone
Mhm.
else. And I did do the lighting design for that, and I was personally impressed with my work given the limitations of that light plot.
Yeah, that's a show that really needs the atmosphere. And
Yes.
if you're touring it or moving it into an unfamiliar space, then you can't do that with scenery as much, I guess. Costumes, sound, and lighting would be the primary functions. And just out of curiosity, have you worked with other theaters outside the Raleigh area, other than your work in college?
Um, the only other work that I've done outside of the Raleigh area was I spent 2 summers in college in New York at the Stage Door Manor Performing Arts Center
Hmm.
as a counselor stage manager for them, and I think that is where I get my connection to youth theater and the understanding that some shows might not necessarily have this big message, but they are still a way for children to access theater.
Sure. Is that up in the Catskills, or where was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in Loch Sheldrake in the Catskills. Absolutely gorgeous up there. I
Yeah.
do miss it.
Yeah, I'll bet that is a lovely part of the country. Um, and I'm curious if there are other artists who are inspirational to you as a stage manager, as an administrative artist, be they stage managers or other walks of life, or maybe even people that aren't in the theater per se.
Yeah. So I'd say that one of the artists that truly caught my eye in college in my studies was David Corins, the production designer for Hamilton and um, Dear Evan Hansen. He did Beetlejuice. He just had a very specific philosophy towards the arts, and that was that everything needs to be designed. I remember I was reading that he was driving through a poorly irrigated parking lot, and like his car was going through a big puddle, and he had that thought. He was like, everything needs to be designed, and I feel that. I really like the all-encompassing feeling of his production design philosophy is sort of how I approach stage management. Because again, I'm sort of a liaison between everyone, and sort of being able to look at all parts equally and have that understanding and that artistic drive towards each element, so that I'm as invested in scenic as I am in lighting. That's something that I really connect with. So David Corins is definitely a big influence on my work.
Yeah.
Or approach. Lucy Jane Atkinson, who I met through you.
Yeah.
She really changed my life. In college, I was all about the big musicals. I was ready to, you know, go off to some theater and just deal with casts of 40 or 50 people and just keep doing that for the rest of my life, because that's what I was trained to do at ECU. And then I came and did a two-hander with Lucy, and I got to see the level of intimacy that you get in that room with those actors, and her approach was so engaging, and so thought-provoking, and I just feel like I learned a lot about myself and what I want from theater through her.
Very good. And because Lucy's a director, I think it's probably a little bit less possible to easily describe. But with David Corins, is there a way to describe his aesthetic? Like the what about it appeals to you? Is it everything must be designed is a broad idea, but within that is there an aesthetic point of view that appeals to you with his work?
Yeah, it's the details for me, and so specifically with Hamilton, the idea that the entire set changes throughout the show. They have these brick. I think they had these brick walls that were kind of building up around the scaffolding through the show, and then the notion of taking away all of the props that we see in the first act, all the cannon walls and things like that, and replacing everything with maps and compasses and globes, and it kind of showed the idea of they're moving from one phase to another, and I just love that level of detail. For Beetlejuice, there were cross sections of the wall that were just filled with these microcosms of Tim Burton's aesthetic, these little worlds within worlds, which is so Beetlejuice, from the movie. There's just that idea of stepping in and out of these different realms. It's just like the attention to them down to the smallest detail. Everything matters for me. I mean, that boils into my work from my approach to line notes and things like that. Like the specificity of language for each playwright is important, and I get down to the nitty gritty. I will make sure that you maintain that conjunction. That's my goal. So like just being able to hone in on just those tiny details that most people would absolutely forget.
What's the hardest part of that? Maybe that varies from show to show, but is there a consistently difficult area to accomplish that?
I would say that for me, the hardest part of a show is absolutely specificity of language, because actors come to you with so many varying levels of memorization, and each role has different amounts of text that they all have to memorize, and you don't always like finding the time in the rehearsal process to do that correction is very difficult, and that depends a lot on your staff, the size of the cast and such. So I always find that that's a struggle for me, because I have to spend every show with my nose in the book, and I'm watching these lines sort of slip away, and it's a little sad to me. But I understand that the actors just don't necessarily have that time, and if they don't get the the aid that stage managers can provide with line notes, then it's not really anyone's fault.
Well, there's also a broad idea. I think it's probably more prominent in film than in theater, but that idea that improvisation means more natural response, right? That if you're winging it, that you're going to be responding in a more natural way, which I don't personally believe is true. But I believe that it takes an inordinate amount of work on the part of the actor to get the lines down so thoroughly that when they speak them, it feels improvisational in nature. It feels like an organic response to something, but you have to not be thinking too much about the line. You can't be thinking what comes next. You have to just respond, and the only way you can do that is if you really have them committed to memory, and that takes time. And time is a valuable commodity in most of our lives these days, particularly in the type of theater that we work in, where although the actors are being paid, they are not being paid enough to live on, and so they have to commit to daytime jobs, and many of them have families as well. So I think there is a reason for that, but I agree that it's a big hurdle, and particularly with a writer who chooses language as specifically as Lauren Gunderson does. Her words don't feel casual to me. They feel very complimentary of each other, and so yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Jeremy, last question, if I may. So if a young person is interested in getting into stage management or thinks they might be, what sort of advice would you give now that you have a professional career under your belt and are starting to work quite a lot in our area? Do you have words of advice for the younger generation coming up?
Yeah, I would say seek out every opportunity that you can. If you don't have a theater program at your school, there are a lot of, especially in the Raleigh area, there are a lot of youth programs out there that really need the technical support because it is such an underrepresented position. And if a youth is interested in that, I think that all they need to do is go and look for it. And most of the people in my position are more than willing to take them under our wings and teach, start assistant stage managing, and then just work your way up and figure out what it is that you want from that position, and go for it. You don't. Yeah.
Do you recommend that somebody in that position learn about other aspects of theater as well?
Yeah, I think that it's important to take in all the different fields of the theater, because if nothing else, it harbors a better understanding for what everyone else is going through and for what they need, because you absolutely need to be able to accommodate all those different areas. And if understanding is going to help that accommodation 100%. Yeah.
That's right. I couldn't agree more on that point. I frankly think directors need to do that, and designers as well, and probably actors too.
Yeah.
But definitely those behind the table, as they say. Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us today on Into the Fire. Your work has been terrific over the last several shows, and we look forward to the opening of Silent Sky by Lauren Gunderson, which opens next week, December 1st, and runs through December 18th here at Burning Coal Theater. Tickets are available at burningcoal.org. or at 919-834-4001. Jeremy Vance, stage manager. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening. This Burning Coal production is sponsored by the Classical Station. Listen at 89.7 FM or online at theclassicalstation.org. Our production of Silent Sky will run from December 1st to the 18th. For tickets and information, visit us at burningcoal.org or give us a call at 919-834-4001.